Hey, are we all set for the move? Yeah, I've sent all your stuff to your parents' house. What? Danny looked shocked at what I just said. Little did he know, a grim fate awaited him. My name is Natasha, a 30-year-old working professional. Danny and I just got married. We were actually classmates in high school. Back then, we were just friends and not romantically involved. After high school, we lost touch, only to reunite a decade later. Our reunion happened at a classmate's wedding. It felt like an informal alumni get-together, and we exchanged numbers after a few drinks at the after-party. We hit it off instantly, and there was something comforting about being together. From then on, we'd grab drinks after work or spend our days off in cafes, and eventually, we started dating. After dating for 2 years, we decided to tie the knot. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd marry him. Life is full of surprises, but of course, I was thrilled to be marrying him and couldn't imagine tying the knot with anyone else. I was head over heels for him. We had family meetings with both sets of parents, met everyone, and had a beautiful wedding ceremony. At the wedding, a video played recounting how we met at a classmate's wedding, and the room burst into applause. So many people came to celebrate our marriage, and we were truly happy. After the honeymoon, our newlywed life began. I was still working after we got married, so we had a dual income, which allowed us some luxuries. We could afford to dine at fancy restaurants and even take vacations on long weekends. Life was blissful, and I felt happy every single day, but that happiness didn't last. The reason? The parents-in-law. Initially, Danny and I lived together in my apartment. About 6 months into our marriage, we decided it was time to buy a house. How about this place? Danny suggested, holding up a brochure for a high-rise condo. Wow, are we really going for such a high-end place? I asked. Well, we're going to live here for a long time, right? I think it's okay to splurge on something really good, Danny replied. He had a point. A comfortable home environment would likely benefit our mental and physical well-being. It could even boost our work productivity and subsequently our earnings. So, I agreed to Danny's proposal, and we decided to buy a luxury high-rise condo. Together, we toured various properties. The high-rise condos we looked at really lived up to the hype. Each place was spacious with great views from the windows, and the kitchens looked user-friendly with their modern layouts. I can't decide. They're all so good, I said. I know, right? Danny agreed. We had a blast exploring various properties. After several discussions, we settled on which place to buy. It was definitely a big-ticket purchase, but living there proved it was worth every penny. The place was incredibly comfy, spacious, clean, and new, which put us in a happy mood every day. Looking out from the room at night offered an amazing cityscape, and on clear, breezy days, we'd step out onto the expansive balcony to sip some coffee. Danny seemed really comfortable too, and life in our new home was joyful for both of us. But then, a little while later, we hit a snag. The issue started when Danny invited his parents-in-law over. I didn't mind. I invited my own parents and had hoped that my parents-in-law would come by at least once. However, they took quite a liking to our place and started showing up repeatedly. The doorbell would ring on weekends, and when we checked the monitor, there they were, Danny's parents. Did you invite Alyssa and Ivan again? I asked. Nope, but let's let them in if they came to visit, Danny answered the intercom. Just showing up unannounced is pretty rude if you ask me. Despite that, Danny didn't seem to mind and let them in anyway. Wow, this place looks fabulous every time we visit, and this view is just spectacular, my parents-in-law exclaimed as they entered. Without a second thought, they sat down on the sofa where Danny and I had just been sitting, acting like they owned the place. Then I'm parched, my father-in-law said. Yeah, how about some cold drinks and snacks, my mother-in-law added. My parents-in-law began ordering me around. Why should I have to do this on my day off? I thought. Natasha, could you get that ready? Danny asked, as if it was the most natural thing. I felt like saying, why didn't you do it yourself? But didn't want to create tension. So, with a desire for them to leave soon, I served my parents-in-law some drinks and snacks. They ate as if it was the most natural thing and continued to lounge around. As it got to the evening, they started to say they were hungry. Should we order delivery? Danny asked. Then, with that, Danny began ordering steak for delivery. Natasha, could you go grab some drinks? Danny asked me. Now? I'm here with Mom and Dad, I replied. You want me to go? No, I'll go get them, Danny said. I was ticked off that Danny just made decisions like that, and I was also annoyed that his parents had no reservations about making themselves at home. However, the thought of being left alone with them while Danny went shopping was even worse. So begrudgingly, I went to the supermarket to buy some liquor. When I got back, Danny and his parents were chatting in the living room, looking like they were having a great time. It would be a heartwarming sight if it weren't so frequent, but seeing them laughing just irritated me. When this happens multiple times a month, to make matters worse, his parents stay late into the night, and because Danny orders expensive steaks for delivery, the costs really add up. What's more, he expects me to cover it, I thought. We have to keep our budget balanced, don't we? I asked Danny. Why not just order something cheaper? I can't do that, Danny replied. It would disappoint Mom and Dad. Plus, people would think we're broke. We have to be mindful of how we're perceived. What Danny's getting at is that living in a high-rise condo apparently means we have to keep up appearances and look wealthy to others. So, ordering cheaper items off the menu would supposedly lower people's opinions of us. I honestly think no one cares about that sort of thing. Ever since Danny moved into the high-rise, he's developed this weird sense of pride. And his parents continued to come over to our place as if it's their second home. While they used to visit only on weekends lately, they've started showing up even on weekdays after work. They're coming around 2 or 3 times a week now. It's almost like they're living here. Lately, they've even started asking Danny for a spare key so we don't have to coordinate all the time. Danny seems to agree, but I've been putting my foot down. And because of that, there's been a strained atmosphere between us. Why can't we... I gave my parents a key. They're my family. Even if they are family, it's not normal to give parents a key to their child's marital home. Why not? Mom and Dad find it inconvenient. Would you be okay giving my parents a key then? Well, that's different. See, you can't say yes. What you're suggesting isn't normal, and you know it. Stop nagging me. You're making things complicated. Complicated? How? I'm just trying to make things easier for Mom and Dad. Stop arguing against it. Don't you use that tone with me, and don't you get in my way. I'm just trying to be a dutiful son. After that hated exchange, we stopped talking to each other for a while. I didn't say anything wrong. I think Danny, who's put himself on a pedestal, is the one in the wrong. Yet Danny doesn't apologize and even invites his parents over as if nothing's wrong. I've grown tired of dealing with his parents, so now I go out whenever Danny brings them over. Danny even complained about that. Hey, it's rude to go out when my parents are here. Why do I need to be here? You 3 are just chatting and relaxing. Well, they're guests in our home. You should be serving them drinks and snacks. They're here all the time. Why do I need to play host? What do you take me for, a housekeeper? No, that's not it. My parents expect you to do this because you're my wife. Don't use your parents as an excuse. I work too, you know. We should share household duties. You don't even cook, so I do it every day. You were supposed to do the laundry and cleaning, but somehow I've ended up doing everything. You're taking me for granted. That's not the case, really. You've grown prideful just because we live in a high-rise doesn't mean you are too good for housework, showing off, huh? Danny mumbled, perhaps because I hit a nerve. Our relationship had started to strain, and then Danny did the unthinkable. One day, I came home from work to find his parents there. Natasha, you're finally home. Elisa, what's going on? Danny and I were having an important conversation. We want to include you, but you weren't here. An important conversation? I had to work late. What's this about? We're moving in. Excuse me? We talked it over. You didn't like the idea of giving them a spare key, right? So Mom suggested that we could just live together. That solves the problem. I thought it was a good idea, so we decided to move in together. We've got a spare room, too. How can you decide this without me? We've discussed it. It's your fault for not being here. That's right, it's your fault. No, if it's that important, you should have told me in advance. Besides, I don't approve of this arrangement. When I said that, his parents looked displeased. Why should we have to get your approval, especially when you're only living here thanks to Danny? I was baffled by what they were saying. See, Natasha always gets carried away. It's hard having her as a wife. Even Danny chimed in. And it clicked. Apparently, Danny had told them he bought the apartment. Why, when in reality, it's in my name, and I'm covering 80% of the mortgage. No, actually, Danny's not contributing financially at all. I'm shouldering the entire cost. Danny started getting carried away and said, "If you keep defying me, we're getting divorced, you know?" "Oh, I guess that means she'll be kicked out of the house, huh? If you want to live a comfortable life, you better not defy us." My parents-in-law chimed in, provoking me just like Danny. At that moment, whatever love I had left for Danny vanished. I'm so done with these people. All right, let's get divorced. What? The moment you mentioned divorce, it was over. I can't continue with you. The three of them looked shocked when I said that, but not wanting to be belittled by me, their son's wife, my parents-in-law pushed for the divorce. "Leave her, just like she said, yeah, Danny? We don't want to live with her either." Persuaded by his parents, Danny seemed to have made up his mind about the divorce. "Fine, start packing and move out. We're done." I'm glad Danny agreed to the divorce. So no distribution of property then? Of course not. I won't give you even a penny. Lucky for me, Danny isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. Can I have 2 or 3 days? I need time to prepare for the move. Hurry up. Well, the weekend's coming up. Mom and I could go on a trip. Oh, how nice. Let's go to Hawaii. And so Danny and his parents were all excited, talking about the trip they were planning. For me, the prospect of them being away was a breath of fresh air. They eventually left for their parents-in-law home. I immediately contacted a moving company. After that, I had them pack up and move all of Danny's stuff. A few days later, Danny returned home alone. "What? You're still here?" Danny looked disappointed to see me. Seeing your face really ruins my good mood after a nice trip." "Oh, really? Could you send the divorce papers then?" "Fine, whatever." Danny looked annoyed as he filled out the divorce papers. Then he handed the paper to me in a rough manner. "Hey, are you done with your moving preparation? I still see some of your stuff." "Yep, I've shipped all your belongings back to your parents' house. Nothing of yours is left in my room." Danny looked shocked at what I said. "What do you mean? Did you really forget? This house is in my name. I make way more money than you do. Have you forgotten what's real while lying to Elisa and everyone else?" Danny finally seemed to realize the situation he was in, and that set him on a path to a miserable end. "Hold on. So, Mom and I can't live in this house?" "No, you can't. This is my house. Plus, my parents are moving in today." "What? Right. Then my parents arrived." "Ah, they're here." Danny's face turned pale and froze as my parents entered the house. "Danny, I heard from our daughter. Seems like you've been treating her pretty badly." Well, you see, don't bother making excuses. I don't want to look at you. Get out of my daughter's house, now." Frightened by the intense anger in Dad's voice, Danny quickly left. I then immediately filed the divorce papers and formally divorced Danny. Though my parents-in-law called and yelled at me, they were speechless when I explained everything. I assumed they also heard the truth from Danny. "You're kidding me. So, the penthouse wasn't something Danny bought?" "Please, Natasha, we've already sold our house. Let us stay in yours." "How dare you even ask that? My parents have already moved in, so give it up." I said that and hung up the phone. It seems that the former occupants of the parents-in-law home had to scramble to find a new place. They had wrongly assumed Danny could afford a penthouse and had bought a bunch of luxury brands like bags and watches. Now they're struggling to make those payments and living a very frugal life. On the other hand, I'm doing well at work, producing good results. My mom helps with household chores, which allows me to focus on my job, something I'm incredibly thankful for. I've also been saving money, and I'm living happily in a luxurious penthouse with my family. Though my marriage was a failure, I plan to aim for even greater success in my career.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day." Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. "So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. "Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them." It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike. What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.